All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Live. We've been on a long streak here for the past, I can say, couple of months now, it seems like. I don't know. It's been a long time. Today, I've got a very mind-blowing video for you guys today that want to take the time to listen to it the whole way through. All right. We're going to be going through a whole lot of past events that have taken place, and we're going to go all the way back. We technically are ultimately, by the end of the video, going to go all the way back to the 1800s. But a big portion of this video is I'm going to be talking about events that happened from World War I, World War II, into where we are today, and some things that I have discovered that are quite mind-boggling. Okay? So, as you're coming in, I want to say this as well. I have made this video where you can pause it, where you can rewind it, and all those things during the live stream, which is it's kind of a big deal, okay? Because sometimes I forget to push that button. So today I allowed it so that way you can, process this stuff. If I say something and you're unsure about it, you can rewind and listen to it over again, all right? And yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. I'm also going to be combining a whole lot of things I've been putting out for a very long time now with the things that I'm presenting today, so you can have the full picture. For those of you that have been following along long term, you know that, I guess just the way my mind works, I love to draw out the full picture, not just bits and pieces, so that way somebody can be like, oh, but this, and this, and then they try and make it crumble apart. So I make sure I cover all corners with scriptures, with evidence, with facts, with all kinds of things, so that way you have a full, clear picture. Okay, I am going to say this as well. Out of all the videos I've made, this could very well be one of the longest videos I've made, because it has to be. And with that also being said, that doesn't mean you have to watch it all at once. All right? I encourage you guys to break this up in parts if you have to, because of the amount of evidence and things I'm going to be presenting here that you need to hear that you're not going to hear really anywhere else, okay? I don't mean that to boast. I mean, I've been looking all over the blame places, okay? So there's all that. We have a good chunk of people up here now. That's good. I think I can actually get going. All right? I'm going to ask you guys as you're coming in to hit one of the buttons down below just to get a little jump in the algorithm. It doesn't even have to be a heart or a like. It can be any little jump. If you hate me, put a little angry face. I could care less. All right? Do something and it'll get this up in the air. And also, if you want to, I would share this video. I mentioned the word share and Facebook cuts me off. Share this to your Facebook page so that other people can hear these things and be in here live. That way when Facebook, being like they love to do, when they try to pull the rug from underneath me and delete my videos and chop it all up to pieces so that people will not hear the truth or see the truth or find the truth or anything like that, because they bury things, at least they'll be able to hear it live, which is why I'm going to encourage you guys to make time for this video today. All right. Where to begin? I'll begin where I left off last night. How about that? Last night, I did a Q&A for you guys, where I tried to catch up a lot of you newer folks, being that we've had almost 10,000 of you guys join the page in just the last month. I tried to do a quick Q&A with you guys, and I answered every question that was asked during the live stream, which was pretty awesome. And if you are new here and you want kind of an update on things I believe as far as with the scripture, go back and start there. Okay? However, when I got done with the live stream last night, all right, it was, I don't even remember what time, it was real late. That video went on for 2.5 hours. Okay, well, I went inside, and one thing I do every day is I try to find some type of movie or something to decode and to break down and to pull even into, hey, did you see this? Well, I walked inside, and I got my son off the computer in there, got him off the things he was doing, and I was like, hey, let's sit down and decode something together. Turn on Netflix, turn my face, it's blowing bad, and I don't want it to affect my mic. Yeah, wind is muffling. Okay, I'm going to turn and change my position. 1 second. I'm glad there is wind. All right, this should be a little bit better, I'm hoping. Yes, on my back now. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? If so, please let me know so I can continue going and not waste my breath. Is the wind any better now? Yes, no, maybe? I don't know. I hope so. Can't hear nothing you're saying. The wind is bad. Wind. Too much wind. Can you hear me now? Wind's making it hard to hear. Too much wind. I'm gonna wait till it works because I'm sitting in a spot now where the wind's not even blowing, so hopefully it's just gonna catch up. Darn it. All right. Hopefully you can hear me now. Makes me want to restart the whole video because there's people that get up here saying, oh, just get to the point, because they want to be spoon-fed everything in 10 seconds. While I research for hours at a time and present videos for hours at a time, they expect to get everything in a recap. Put a whole lot into this stuff. Okay, yes. Someone says you can hear me now. Okay, I'm gonna take that as my cue to go. It says you can hear me now. My hair's not blowing either, so that's awesome. All right. I can hear the comments now on this posted later. They're gonna be like, man, just get to the point. Stop this and that. Can you just tell me what's big and what's happening? Just please, fast forward if you have to. I don't care. I'm gonna say this over again though, because there was people that said they couldn't hear. What I'm gonna present today is going to be information that I have dug and gathered from the 1800s all the way forward. And what's going to happen is I'm going to put out things that are going to possibly blow your minds, of things that maybe not have been put together in your head quite fully yet. All right? Some of these things I've covered in depth over the last, 3 years. All right? And some of these things are going to be new to even the people that have been following for a very long time. All right? But I encourage you to listen to it, because more than likely Facebook's going to completely snatch this video out from underneath me. All right? So listen, make time to listen to this and hear it. It's very important. Okay. First thing we're going to do is this. After the live stream last night, this is where y'all said the wind was messing up at. After the live stream last night, what happened is I went inside and I do what I usually do. And I went inside to decode a movie with my family. I got my son off the computer to go over there, and I cut on Netflix, all right? And as soon as I popped on Netflix, you need to know, Netflix puts batches of movies up there. Sometimes it's every month, sometimes it's every couple of months. They'll switch and rotate. Well, this month, September, and I showed you this underneath the post, this month, September, they have updated and put in a 2012 movie that's been on Netflix several times. All right. But this time they put it out again up there this month. September 1st was their release date, technically instilling back on Netflix. All right. Why does that matter? Why is that important? I'm going to tell you. Well, you know, at the top of Netflix, it shows the big banners of recommended movies, not just recommended, at the very top. It's the one that fills up the whole top. Well, this was the movie. As soon as I walked in, I was like, well, that's crazy. I don't even remember watching this movie. And I said, let's decode this tonight. And so I click it and we watch it. I'm going to share with you some things from that movie that blew my mind. But that's not what this video is all about. But this is about what started it all. All right? Well, in this movie, all right, what happens is there are these two brothers. Remember I told you there's always two wings of a great eagle? One of them plays John, I don't even remember what the last name of it was, but anyway, there's two people in this movie, okay, that are put in charge of these warships, ultimately, okay, and they go out to sea for this naval exercise called RIMPAC, okay, which is a real thing, Pacific Rim RIMPAC, where they had to make an agreement for the nations to come together at certain times of the event, where they meet out at Pearl Harbor, where Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki took place. and they gather out there to do naval events, okay? And it's hosted as one of the largest naval exercise. Facebook is really trying to fight me right now. It's hosted as one of the largest naval exercises that there is in general. You're not going to find one bigger than this, okay? And during this naval exercise, they have nations from all over the world, and in the movie it was 20-some thousand people gather together in the ocean, and they do naval exercises, all right? Well, in this movie, the James and John characters, they're put in two different battleships leading armies, all right? One of them puts out what he's supposed to be saying to the other, and then the other one actually puts out the opposite of what he's saying, getting everybody all hyped up. And well, while that's happening, okay, here's what you need to understand. This was in 2012. This was before Donald Trump was even president, okay, even on the board for being president. And he said this: while those two guys are leading their naval fleets out in the military, out in the ocean, Rihanna, in the movie, she says this. She says, "Is it just me, or does it seem like we're being led by Donald Trump and Mike Tyson?" Okay, that's what she said, which is wild because Donald Trump and Mike Pence came into be presidents right after this was released. Shortly after they were elected as presidents, Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Okay, but she says, is it just me, or do we feel like we're being led by Donald Trump and Mike Tyson, word for word? And then the guy that was presenting himself literally like the Donald Trump character, he says, "I swear, you said Donald Trump." And then he did. He responded back to her saying, and in quotation, "We've ended up being in a department that's ran by some kind of Donald Trump, Mike Tyson mutant combo." That's what it said, word for word, in the subtitles, okay? Why does that matter? Well, I've been telling you guys, Donald John Trump and James Donald David Vance are the two wings of a great eagle. I'm not going to get into that whole spew again today because this is about something else, okay? But ultimately, that's what took place in this movie. And while they're out there doing their biggest naval exercise in history, where they already have warships gathered for a Pearl Harbor memorial type thing, okay? They already have the warships out there while something happens. In this movie, the first thing that takes place during this RIMPAC event, okay, isn't just things rising from the sea. There's 4 things that fall from the sky, okay? 3 fall into the ocean, and 1 falls into China. And it looks like a big fireball that falls from the sky, that's really like an alien machine type thing, okay? That falls from the sky in China. And in the movie, it's actually, I think I have the notes here where it says what part. Oh, yeah. In the movie, it falls in Shandong province in China, all right? That's how it starts off, is 1 falls there in China and 3 other fall into the Pacific Ocean, okay? And what takes place after this is the warships, they're out there, they're out doing their exercises, and all of a sudden these 3 big beast machines from the ocean that are ran by aliens, okay, rise from the ocean and start waging war against that naval force that's out there. Now, what's really interesting is the 2 leading battleships are numbered 06 and 53. Why does that matter? Because the beast is of the 7, which is 6th, but is the 8th, okay? That's why you have 6 and 8 out there ran by the Donald Trump and Mike Tyson characters, okay, while they're out there in that ocean. And here's what they do next. They start fighting these things. Well, one of the wings gets destroyed and passes his power on to the other wing, who takes over with the same power that the first one has. He's given command. And he fights and fights, and the whole movie is ultimately about them out there in the middle of the ocean playing a real-life battleship against these huge things that rise out of the ocean. There's 3 of them ultimately, with the one that was done away with in China. Why does that matter? Well, yesterday was the first day of RIMPAC's mission called Unitas. U-N-I, which is uni, T-A-S, which is pronounced unite us. And it comes from the Latin word called unity, oneness. is where that word comes from in Latin. And this is happening right now. Right now, the biggest naval exercise movement in history is taking place in our Atlantic Ocean right now as of yesterday. Project Unitas began, where there's over 8,000 American personnel and then 24 nations of the world, 25 nations of the world that have come together in our Atlantic Ocean right now for the biggest naval exercise in history, where they're doing submarine drills, battleship drills, anti-amphibious warships, shooting of rockets and things like that, live fire sinking drills. All of that stuff is taking place in our ocean right now. But you know what's even more interesting than that? Remember, the video started out by a big ball of fire falling in China. Okay, that's literally how that whole thing starts out. And then the Navy gets caught off guard. They're like, wait, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this, because they were out there. Next thing you know, they're having to fight aliens in the ocean. Well, don't you remember what was reported yesterday morning that happened this week? There was a huge fireball that came down crashing in China, and they have it listed as a UFO, but also as an unidentified, just whatever it is, huge, and it was completely covered up. And yet everybody saw it. All right? That literally happened. And you know what else happened? Everything else I've been telling you and all the other mini live streams happening in our oceans. Okay? I don't even have to get in depth about that stuff, about what took place in Drake Passage with the thousands of soldiers there. What's taking place right now is on top of Unitas, right there by Venezuela, which is still outside of the Atlantic Ocean, is also thousands of other warships, amphibious warships, battleships, drones, unmanned subs, and everything else. And also at the top part of the Arctic by Greenland, would you guess what's up there? A whole lot of warships, anti-subs, anti-war machines, all of that stuff happening out there. No joke. Documented all this stuff. All right? Well, that's all taking place. While we also have a hot blob anomaly that's been documented in our Atlantic Ocean over just the past couple of months as well. That's over 250 miles wide and slowly moving toward New York City. While we also had a hurricane that got up to a Category 2 that they were naming Gabriel, that just vanished in thin air in only a couple of hours and only left a huge wave pushing towards the Atlantic coast, American coast. All happened. Okay, and now we have another hurricane forming randomly. And if you pay attention to my, how do you know that happened? Where are you going? Where are you getting this information? Watch a couple of my live streams and you'll see them. All the information I've provided. All right, cool. If you're new here, which I thought I had this where only followers that have been established and listen can comment so the others can listen. If you're new here, I encourage you to sit back and listen. Sweet. All right, so let's keep going here. That's all taking place. Now, let's go on even further. I'd catch up on my page a little bit is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be ugly or rude. All right? Okay. So, here's this. You have, and I mean literally, in this movie, I'm going to point out so many things that are taking place throughout this live stream, but I'm going to show you some context before then. It's going to just wait. All right. Let's start digging in. All right. Now, let's start looking at history a little bit. That's what get you. For those that have been following a long time, all right, that have been here and listened for the past 2 or 3 years now, okay? I'm going to ask you guys just to comment, just to show you've been paying attention. Hey, Chad, you're up here now. Hey, Chad. Okay, tell me, what movie is it that truly took place in Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki? Do you guys remember which movie it was? Which one of that one type of movie it was? That was more like a documentary than anything? That I kept telling you guys to watch over and over again? Everybody's going to say Pacific Rim, not Pacific Rim. Okay, it was Godzilla Minus One. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to watch it. Okay? In Godzilla Minus One, I posted it on my page, Mark, for you to go see. All right, sweet. Godzilla -1, here's what took place. There was this huge dragon, dinosaur, creature, whatever you want to call it, Godzilla. And this is him in his smallest form. This isn't Godzilla in his biggest form. This is one of his smallest forms. Godzilla came up in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay? What's up? My son wants to say hello. Godzilla came up in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay? And they bomb him twice on the coastlines. They bomb him once right on the coastline, and then he goes in further and they bomb him again. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Okay? And what this does is cause Godzilla to go back into the Pacific Ocean with a suffered, I mean, just it blew his part of his head and messed him up bad. All right? And so he goes back into the Pacific Ocean, where he remains dormant just for a little bit of time. So while he's doing that, China and Japan and the Philippines and all those people over there, they start sending out ships into the Pacific Ocean, where they began putting all those mines, which took place in real life, all out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, everywhere. Immediately following that thing of them blowing that up. You know, and people don't even know what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and why they had to kill so many witnesses. There was over 200-some-thousand civilians killed and bombed, blown up in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and only a couple thousand soldiers were killed in Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The rest were left with radiation poisoning. Okay? Real life stuff. All right? It was tragic. But here's what took place. That was in 1945, was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now pay attention to what happened after and around that exact same time in 1945. Okay? After they blew up something that came up on the coastline of Hiroshima and then a little bit further into Nagasaki, okay? Whatever it is goes back into the ocean and they know it. Okay? And so they start dropping mines all over the place on that side of the coast and all the way to the central part. And in many live streams, I've showed you a lot of this stuff kind of in detail over on YouTube. Okay? But I have to get into the crazy, crazy stuff today. After that happened, do you guys know what happened in 1946 through 1958? And it started technically only a couple of months after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Do you know what happened? Well, since Facebook's put such a lag in this, I'm not going to wait for you to respond. Exactly following Hiroshima and Nagasaki began the Marshall Island Bikini Atoll Proving Grounds. All right? Proving Grounds. Pearl Harbor was when it first popped up. That's why people don't understand what took place in Pearl Harbor, where they also had to bomb and kill a whole lot of people. And while they also had their own Navy people face away as they were bombing the stuff and cover their faces and put their heads between their legs, as documented by many. Okay? But here's this, and I'm going to get into Pearl Harbor because that's one of the most important topics as well, but I gotta go with this first, okay? I encourage you guys just to listen before asking 1,000 questions, because I will get sidetracked and I have no way of hiding these things. Listen, from 1946, only a couple months afterwards, for some reason, the nations came together to decide to start doing this. The Marshall Island tests, which they called Bikini Atoll Proving Grounds. If you paid attention to Godzilla -1, that's where, on that coastline all out there, that's where they bombed Godzilla over and over and over again and fought against him for a long time. Over and over and over again, keep him away from the coastlines. Now, this was from 1946 to 1958, but check this out. Between 1946 and 1958, and I'm pulling this as quotations from their whole thing, okay? Nothing with Israel has been brought up, and y'all are going to distract people. Thanks. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States conducted 67 nuclear tests in Marshall Islands, in both the ocean and the land. Okay? The Nuclear Museum, this is pulled from the Nuclear Museum of Bikini Atoll Operation Crossroads, where you meet the devil at the crossroads. Okay? Listen, this is pulled from it. 95 times. 95 times did they bomb ships outside of Bikini Atoll Island and sunk them. Think hard about that. 95 times. And in the midst of all that, they carpet bombed the bottom of the ocean in the Pacific Ocean just from 1946 to 1958. They carpet bombed the bottom of the ocean 173 times. Just in that amount of time, So that plus that was going on at that time. Now, do you know what else happened at the exact same time? Well, 1947, you have the Roswell incident. July 8th, 1947. For some reason, they have a unidentified flying anomaly take place in 1947, in which something came crashing down, and Area 51, which is 51 is 6 again, had to be brought on the table, where they started hiding stuff underground and keeping it from the public, all around the exact same time. Literally. And we know what else matters? Because of this. All right, listen to this. This is absolutely nuts. That's not it. Let's just keep going though. Some of the things you guys. Anyway, listen. Here we go. 1946, 1958, you have the proving grounds, the crossroads taking place of all those big bombs taking place in the ocean, around the ocean, all around that side, okay? 1947, you already have Roswell taking place. Now, here's something else. Do you know what happened in 1954 in the middle of all this? Listen. Castle Bravo. Castle Bravo took place. What's Castle Bravo? Well, it was 15 megatons, which is 1,000 times. I need you to remember, the first time they bombed this thing in Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, it didn't stop it. That's why it bombed right on the coastline. And then they had to bomb it a little further in to get it back in the ocean, and it didn't even kill it or nothing. So you know what they had to do? Up their game. Check this out. By 1954, only about 10 years later, here's what took place. Castle Bravo. 15 megatons, 1,000 times exactly as large as the Hiroshima bomb that went off. That is found in the Encyclopedia Britannica. You know what else happened that same time? When they set off that 1,000 times as large as Hiroshima bomb out in the middle of the ocean, March 1st, the same time, March 1st, 1954, they have the Dago Fukayo Maru. Do you know what that is? That means lucky dragon number 5. Why does that matter? Well, don't you remember what happened? That right there is what they named Godzilla after. That big bomb went off and they named a ship called the Drago Fukayo Maru, which means literally lucky dragon number 5. Okay? All right. But here's this. Crew members were exposed to fallout from the U.S. hydrogen bomb that was detonated outside of Bikini Atoll. All right. Now, you know what took place that same year? Only a couple of months later? Only a couple of months later in 1954, they have the first ever premiere of Godzilla. Same year. Same year. Godzilla 1 came out. It's the same day they set off the biggest hydrogen bomb in the Pacific Ocean and called it Lucky Dragon number 5, the ship in which it polluted. And I think it's literally 2 months later, they come out with the series called Godzilla. Do you know why? Because they went from 1945 to 1954 trying to hide things from the public. So then they got to the point, okay, we had to have hurt this thing pretty bad. Now we have to start warning the public somehow. Do you know what started around this exact same time? The space race, in which they stopped studying the ocean and they tried to look for ways to get out of here. Don't you remember? Hence why only 80% of the ocean was explored before they were like, we got to get out of here. Like they woke something up. Now, here's this. You can't make this up. In the movie Godzilla 1 from 1954, can you believe how that movie starts off? It starts off in the opening of the boat disaster called Lucky Dragon. And that's in Wikipedia, find it. The first movie starts off with Lucky Dragon number 5 getting blown up. Now, here's this. I'm not even nowhere near done with this video. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of the longest videos I've ever done in my life. Because when I get about 15 minutes from now, you guys' minds are going to be shooting sparks out. And you're probably going to want to go call your mom or something and say, hey, Mom, I'm sorry for all the things I did in my life. Just that's what it is. Listen, and I promise it'll be worth it. And if you're enjoying this, smack one of the buttons down below. Get a little jump and bring some. If you're enjoying this already, go on and share it on your page so more people can come in and enjoy this with you. Because it'll be deleted if the government gets a hold of it. Because listen to this. Matthew Bridges, boy, it's going to blow your mind in a little bit. Listen. Do you know what happened in 1958? 1958, they set off their final bomb, carpet bomb, hydrogen bomb in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And here's what happened. They started changing focus. They had to get a new focus of what they were going to do next. So, guess what came on this table? 1971, RIMPAC began, in which all the nations had to come together in agreement to start meeting in the ocean every year to come together with one common cause for this in case something happened. That was in 1971. RIMPAC began in 1971 and was in context for the biggest maritime exercise still to this day. Okay? Now we'll listen to this. Do you know what happened in September 21st of 1987? The United General Assembly came together. The UN. Why does that matter? Well, listen. Ronald Reagan says this. Because they got to prepare you for what in the world's happening so that way you won't fall out with fear. Listen. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. And I occasionally think of how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish as if we were facing an alien threat from outside of this world. Ronald Reagan, Library Section 3 of the Archives. And then, in 1985, here's what he said again at the Geneva Summit, speaking to students. Just think how easy his task and mine might be if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, is what he changed it to at that point. Now, here's this. All right. In the 1990s, by 1990, they had come up with the U.S. Air Force resolution, which includes the Roswell incident and the debris found from it, and how they most likely, and this is what they put out, most likely from the Project Mogul, M-O-G-U-L, high altitude balloon test. They were saying that Roswell took place from a high altitude balloon, is what they said, okay? So they started kind of putting stuff out to cover their tracks at this point. Do you know what else happened then? Well, I want you to know that the word conspiracy theory never existed. Conspiracy theorist? I gotta be careful. Facebook don't like me. The word conspiracy theorist did not become a word until John F. Kennedy in the middle of all this. So that way, when people start calling stuff out, they can simply call you a conspiracy theorist and label you in the archives of crazy. So that way, they can have a whole category of people that they're calling nuts for trying to expose the truth. All in the middle of all this. Now, let's put some more things into perspective. All right? You can't make this up. December 5th. Let's go back to 1945. December 5th. I have several videos about Wormwood. December 5th says this. 1945. Flight 19. Hey, let me just say it like this. Hey guys, do you know when conspiracies began about Bermuda Triangle? The same year as Hiroshima and Nagasaki. December 5th, 1945 was Flight 19. Do you know what happened then? This is in quotation. We cannot be sure where we are. Our barometers are glitching. That's the flight leader radio, in which you have an event where a whole plane goes missing over the Bermuda Triangle. Not just that though. You also have 3 other ships and planes go missing around the exact same time in the Bermuda Triangle. 1945, 1947, 1953. Now, at this exact same time, do you know what started World War II and World War I? Remember what I told you? Well, it was in 1918. People don't want to talk about this. In 1918, you have this. There was over 306 that were lost. And this is in the Naval History and Heritage Command archives. There was over 306 that were lost in this point. And it says this. They called it the USS Cyclops that went missing in the Bermuda Triangle. Completely just, something snatched it underwater and just destroyed it, made it vanish in the Bermuda Triangle. And that was right at the start of World War I, World War II, and soon to be, now, World War III. So tell me, just from the 1900s, you have a Roswell incident, you have ships and planes that are getting snatched out of air and disappearing from uncharted waters where you can't go anymore. You have the word conspiracy theory created. You have Hiroshima and Nagasaki events in which you have the Godzilla creatures happening of Godzilla -1. You have the biggest bombs ever dropped in the ocean over 173 times. You have these points where multiple warships, multiple things just disappeared. But not only that. You have this. December 28th of 1948. You have the DC-3. I know, Shane, I've talked about it many times. I'd encourage you to listen, because most of the things you're posting I've already talked about in depth, and you're going to miss something while you're typing. And I'm not saying to be ugly, I'm being honest. Listen. Okay, because this is crazy. In December 28th of 1948, only 3 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this is what happens. DC-3 completely disappeared, and these were the last words of these 32 people that were on board. There's no probable cause determined. It remains unresolved. When they asked what was going on. 32 were on board that disappearance. You can find that on Wikipedia. That's where I have that pulled from. And then there's this. By 1964, the term Bermuda Triangle was popularized by Vincent Gaddis in Argosy magazine for the first time. Fun fact, in the movie Hotel Transylvania 3, do you know what's kept in the Bermuda Triangle? A whirlpool with the Kraken in the middle of it that rises at a time when frequencies and noise and sounds and music go crazy, and it causes it to rise out in a trance and destroy things. And that's just one of many. But let's just keep going here. Let's look at this part here. What's happening now? And I am getting to Wormwood in a little bit. It's in my notes. That's what I'm saying. Just be patient, okay? Because we're only on my point number like 7 out of, I don't even know how many we're getting to today. Just hang in there, okay? Because you have this happening now as well. what year was this? Oh, okay. Now, you can't make this up. In the Godzilla series, anybody want to take a guess of how long Godzilla remained dormant after they finally blew him up at the end of that 45 years? 45 years he remained dormant, recovering, and soaking in all that radiation that went to the bottom of the ocean and mutating even more. Okay? And after this point, you have this point where things start happening in the ocean. Watch this. In the movie Atlantic Rim, which came out in 2012, it opens up like this. There's an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean where all of a sudden, this oil rig's out there, all of a sudden, a huge dragon rises up out of the ocean and destroys and sinks this big old oil rig with all the people on it. And they go and tell the public that the oil rig sunk from some other cause, and don't tell it about the dragon out there, and they release in the news that it was something else. All right? Anyway, so here's this. Okay, I gotta stop getting distracted. In this movie, they're out there in the Atlantic Ocean, and all of a sudden they have an oil rig out there that gets completely smashed by a big dragon that rises out of the ocean and destroys it. They tell the people in America that it sank out of natural causes and something else happened. All right? Now, here's this. All right? From that point, the United States developed a naval system of where they could go out in the oceans and fight these creatures and keep them off the coastlines for as long as they could, until eventually one first. This is why they're always covering you with hurricanes in case something happens. It came up in Florida first, and then it came up in New York City, and then it came up on the California coastlines, these titans. And then from there, they had to come together and fight giants with robots. And I hate how Facebook's fighting me. I'm so sorry, guys. So that happened. It's happening. All right. So, do you know what happened 1 year before they made the movie at Atlantic Rim? Well, this will blow your mind. Some people have heard this already. In 2011, 1 year before Atlantic Rim came out, about the missing about the oil rig that goes missing out in the ocean, 1 year before was Kolskaya. Kolskaya. And you know what happened? Well, there was an oil rig that was capsized and sank with 67 on board, and only 14 were rescued. But then there was this. At the same time, you have Iran that has an unpaid, undelivered rig, and it's called still to this day the Fortana case, still happening today. All right? Well, they're still looking into it today, in which you have Iran who purchased an oil rig, and while it was being delivered overseas, it just went missing, and they lost a whole lot of money. And to this very day, they still don't know what happened to that oil rig that went missing in the middle of the blame ocean. And then 1 year later, they make a movie about an oil rig that goes missing in the middle of the ocean and is snatched down by a dragon. Exactly 1 year later. But that's not even all. If you go to my YouTube channel, I've listed article after article after article of, you can't make this up, of huge cargo ships that have been completely snapped in half and sunk. You need to think about what it takes to snap a cargo ship that can hold big old containers, big metal containers on it. Okay? Snapped in half several times. Also, the Navy has a ship in which they have a HAARP, this really huge HAARP frequency thing, which I believe they're using as a trident, like the water gods of old, like old days, like your old Greek culture stuff, they use tridents, which is really a vibrational frequency tuning fork to control the beast at sea. That's really why they have these frequency towers like they do. They're not really just for you and weather warfare. They're to keep things from coming up on our coastlines, is why they have these noises and frequencies happening. Have you not seen what frequencies do to whales and how they drive them insane and keep them away? Yeah. All right, that's what they're doing right now, is keeping stuff off the shore, and it's really having an effect on the people and the weather and everything else as well, trying to hold back things from coming up on the land using their giant tuning forks. This is why Elon Musk had his little 3 cans of the 3 different ages with his little tuning fork sitting up there as well. Natasha, that's the name of blasphemy given to the mystery Babylonian whore to wear on her forehead, pronounced Jesus. Jesus, stigma 660 and 6, pronounced Jesus, because he's of the 7, which is 6, but is the 8. That's why in Roman Greek, that name right there